Welcome back, everybody, to On at World's Edge, the Warhammer Lore podcast. Thank you for your patience here with this one. I know it took a little while to come out, but we are going to be talking today about the Hell Pit, the Skaven Moulder clan hold. This was an especially fun project for me. I'm not familiar with the Skaven as I am with other races. I didn't play them on the tabletop or really in take any special time to play them in Warhammer Total War. So this was a new kind of topic for me, but that makes it all the more fun to learn about them. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. We're going to be taking a look at the Hell Pit, as I said, which is the Clan Moulder headquarters, as it were, or the center of their race. Clan Moulder, just for those who are not familiar, is one of the four main faction groups or main racial groups of the Skaven, which is the rat-like chaos faction of Warhammer Fantasy. So they worship the Horned Rat, which is in Warhammer Fantasy not a chaos god. If you play Age of Sigmar, you know that he's been deified at that point and is one of the major chaos pantheon. But at this point, he is a separate god, not raised to the chaos pantheon yet. But the Skaven do worship him, and Clan Moulder represents an aspect of the Skaven which tames beasts, and not only tames them and uses them in combat, but also molds them. Clan Moulder molds them into new types of beasts. So you find them with not only regular size rats, like swarms of them, but also giant rats, and giant rats with multiple heads, giant rats with plagues, giant rats with knives for arms, giant arms with people for torsos, and dwarf hands and rat tails. You get the idea. Their headquarters is called the Hell Pit, and just like and they it's located in the far north of the Warhammer world, close to Kislev and Karak Varn. It's different from the other Skaven holds. Now, like we've talked about on this channel before, different races look for different things when they're founding their locations for it signifies what's important to them. To the Skaven, they look for warpstone. So Skaven Blight, the headquarters of the Skaven, is founded in the Blighted Marshes near Tilia and Astalia. And it's founded on a gigantic pile of warpstone. The City of Pillars, similarly, which was once Karak Eight Peaks, it was also founded on a giant pile of warpstone. Cripple Peak or Nagashizar, giant pile of warpstone. There are a few that are not, like Ketsa in Lustria, the headquarters for Clan Pestilence isn't a pile of warpstone, but it's really only their headquarters because that's where it comes out in Lustria, so it's more of a headquarters of convenience. And perhaps that's what the Hell Pit was too, but we won't really know because there isn't that much information about it. The Hell Pit, for its part, does have a major resource. It's not warpstone per se, but it is proximity to animals and also to chaos animals in specific. So being close to the chaos wastes, it has access to beasts of chaos. And we're talking chimeras, hydras, Charybdis from the chaos seas, which they can get from the dark elf lands, mammoths, and even marauders, because they're not above using human subjects as well. It also has access to Kislev for human slaves, dwarves for dwarven slaves, and of course orcs and goblins, because it's not just the animals it also needs labor, and it also needs alchemical ingredients, so blood, skin, hair, flesh, anything that you can think of from listening to anything about magecraft. It also needs those ingredients as well, and all of these things make its way to the Hell Pit, which makes the presence of other creatures a great thing. So the Hell Pit's location not having warpstone itself really isn't a bad thing for its economy because it does use all of these other natural resources to then get um, warpstone. So it does have access to that resource which the Skaven covet. Now, one of the other things that makes the Hell Pit a little bit unusual is unlike the other uh, Skaven holds, the major holds, and even the minor holds, is that it's completely made by the Skaven. So Skaven Blight was made out of the city of Kavar, a human dwarf city. City of Pillars was made out of Carragate Peaks. Cripple Peak was tunneled under Nagashazar. Ketsa was made under Lustria. And almost every other place on the map that we just saw, whether it's, Mordheim or Karak Varn or Silver Spear, Gunbad, these are all, you'll note, places owned by other races that the Skaven have taken over. Hell Pit, at least as far as we can tell, and we can look at other maps from earlier points in Warhammer history, so Skaven, War of the Beard maps, Great Cataclysm maps, Lustria, Lizardmen maps, none of them show anything going on in this area prior to the Skaven. Prior to 1300, before Sigmar, this area simply wasn't populated. So the Hell Pit was excavated by the Skaven for this purpose. And that means that it's not only unique for its purpose-built location, it's also built by Skaven, which is not something they're particularly known for as great feats of architecture. And a great feat of architecture it is. The approach is said to be breathtakingly large, a testament to the thousands of slave lives expended in its construction. A gigantic edifice of iron and human bone studded with jewels of pure warpstone in the shape of a gigantic rat. The gates are hung with screaming bodies of starving men and women, woven into the intricate metalwork, side by side with the putrefying corpses of those who have screamed their last, and inscribed atop the portal are unholy psalms extolling the glories of Clan Moulder, and warning those who enter to abandon all hope. That seems to be a pretty good descriptor of what's about to happen for anyone who comes up to Clan Moulder, at least for those who are entering without the intention of making purchases. The lava river is the first thing that greets a race who's approaching to purchase from Clan Moulder, because as we said, their main form of economy is, of course, selling beasts that they build or that they just capture and modify. So you can purchase beasts from them, and that's what they do. And the Warhammer tabletop and Warhammer Total War games do not make great use of this, I don't think, in my opinion, but they will sell to other races as well, not just other Skaven. But so maybe that's a good modding idea there for all of you out there who are more creative than I. But yes, they will sell to other people as well. So you could find a Chaos Lord in here making a deal, or another Skaven Lord making a deal, or I guess presumably even humans making deals to buy Clan Moulder creations, though they may find it distasteful. The first circle, and there are 9 circles we're going to go through, just like Dante's Inferno, which I'm sure is what it was based off of. The first circle are the slave pens. Skaven slaves, for those of you who are familiar, do make up the largest group of their society. They're the most numerous, the shortest lives, and their lives are absolutely brutal. Clan Moulder slaves are entirely fodder for their entire system of being. They start off as you come in as a slave at the beginning of the first circle, and you make your way down. The slave pits are said to be pressed flesh rooms with barely enough room to move. Moaning, sobbing masses of all races and creeds, dwarves upon goblins, elves upon Skaven, infants upon elders. The prisoners are picked as required for fodder by the master mutators, selected by the storm vermin to be sent below, where they are either used for food, for experimentation, or of course for ingredients. Which brings us to the next level. The second level is, of course, the breeding warrens. Skaven society is nothing if not prolific at breeding. Most of the Skaven that you encounter on the tabletop or on the games are male Skaven, because the breeding females are kept behind closed doors, where they spend their entire lives essentially on their backs, creating, or stomachs as it were, creating new Skaven and then suckling the ones that have been bred. This is done in Clan Moulder on the second level, directly underneath their food source, which are the Skaven slaves. The breeding pits are said to be great cobbled halls strewn with blood-slick straw, shot through with cockroaches and fleas. The area is patrolled daily by a twisted master mutator who's fused himself to the shoulders of a great doom bowl, which the master guides with constant whispered instructions. Huge rat queens dot the floor, suckling brood after brood of younglings, with their distended, bloated bellies. Unquestionable unions that could drive a witness insane are the bread and butter of this realm, and it's better not to dwell on such practices. This is the first taste that we see of what awaits the vistas of this area, of this realm. Not the brooding, the brood queens. Those are available in any Skaven area because that's just how they breed. But a master mutator fused to a doom bowl. That's exactly what Clan Moulder does. The use of warpstone to fuse a Skaven to a doom bowl to make a greater creation is their bread and butter. And with that, speaking of foodstuffs and keeping the brood queens fed, we go down to the next level, the feeding level. The feast halls are the area where the Skaven congregate in any hold, and Clan Moulder is no different. This is where they celebrate, this is where they eat, this is where they meet together as a hold. It was where you'll find their leader, Throth the Unclean, the most venerable of the Clan Moulder lords. It's where you'll find their master Moulders. We've mentioned a lot about them even just as we've talked so far. And the master Moulders are essentially their lord choice. They're the ones who direct their efforts and who you'll see instigating their experimentations. It's described as a storm of warpstone tainted rain constantly whirling through the area. It's open to the sky and freezes the marrow of any who negotiate its uneven floors. Any who languish there soon find their bodies mutating as the warpstone takes its toll. It's little surprise that Throth and the Unclean, and who's a connoisseur of ravaged flesh, has his laboratories on this level. More remarkable is the fact that he and his gluttonous cohorts create almost as much as they consume. So if you're wondering where exactly the experimentation occurs, so where they create the creatures that they're using, it occurs on the feasting halls level, the third level of the Hell Pit. So just to recap, we've had slave pens, breeding pits, and the feasting halls, which are the laboratories as well. We're descending now further into the Hell Pit on level 4. Level 4 is most familiar to any who have had any interest in the dwarf halls, and it is the treasure vaults. Now, treasure means different things to different races, and to the Skaven it means warpstone. They also have other treasures as well: precious metals, gold, and more traditional kinds of currency exchanges. But to the Skaven, it's always going to be warpstone. Mountainous repositories of precious metals amassed by the clan are topped by hunched Skaven locked in the futile task of recording Clan Moulder's wealth. At the end of the day, this is what it's all about for them. All Skaven society is bent towards the accumulation of warpstone. So this is what you do. What level 4 is all about. Level 5 is the gladiatorial arena. This is where the beasts that have survived so far, so slaves that have survived to levels 1 through level 1, it didn't get fed on level 2 and were experimented on level 3. This is where they're tested, deciding if they're going to be allowed to continue. If they survive the gladiatorial arena, which is divided into great pits that are chained to the side of the walls and used as a spectator sport by the denizens of Clan Moulder, then they'll be allowed to continue on, allowed in quotations, as I'm sure at this point they would much rather die, but they'll be allowed to continue on to the next level. And if they fail, then they'll be used as food for the slaves that were successful. Directly underneath the gladiatorial arena are the sludge tunnels. I'm not giving you a description of a picture of this area, but I will give you the description. The rich soil of corpse flesh on the overhang that forms the 6th level is marked for special punishment by the clan. Chieftains who've displeased their masters drag their chains through the muck, and it is often here that those out of favor with the tribes of the north are led. Those poor souls can be sure of the most horrific and extensive modifications, such as ending their days as grotesque living furniture for maniacal moulders such as Isaac Grottle. These prisoners can never escape, for the single opening that leads out of the 6th level is watched over by a thing whose gaze can turn a would-be escapee to stone. Grisket, the Lord of the Sludge, rules this place, and he is constantly accompanied by 3 rat-headed hybrids with the bodies of human females and leathery wings of bats. Yeah, I'm not showing a picture of a pre-modern sewage treatment area watched over by Fornophilia rats, but if you would like pictures of that, I am sure there are websites that cater to it. Moving right along. The next level is the penultimate level of the hell pit, and it is called the roots of the hell pit, the final torture level or dungeon, as it were, of an area that can only be described as hell itself. And this is where the final, where the creatures who have survived the slave pits and then survived the experimentation of the laboratories, who have survived the gladiatorial arenas, and who have impressed their masters all the way, are then given their final round of modifications. They're infused with warpstone slurry, had warpstone applied to their bodies, and then given weapon augments, or just watched to see what happens as far as mutations are concerned. Some grow extra heads or limbs, or some have their bodies warp in strange ways, or or accept their new appendages that are pressed onto them as part of their body itself properly. Others simply scream in horror as they live in constant pain. Regardless, this is their life now, and if they survive this level, they get to move on to the final one, which is the 9th circle. Ruled over by the Packmasters of Clan Moulder, this is essentially a garage or storage area, completely dark and inhabiting a huge cavernous intestine-like realm underneath the hell pit. This is where the monsters who have survived every realm of the hell pit live until they are called to battle, whether it is to be rented out and sent to a distant land, or it is to deal with one of the many threats to the hell pit. Because we haven't talked much about the hell pit, but in its more than 3 millennia, of existence, the hell pit has been besieged many times, and in that time the Skaven have learned best how to defend it. Sometimes they allow intruders to invade the tunnels and be torn apart by creatures inside. Sometimes they meet them on the field outside, using giant elevators to hoist creatures from the 9th circle all the way to the surface world, the light which they haven't seen for years blinding them as they reach the surface, only to be greeted by the arrows and swords of enemies they now hope will kill them, even as they tear them apart instinctually. Any number of creatures could be found in the depths of the hell pit. Some are familiar to players of the game, such as giant rats, throttlings, hell pit abominations. Some have no vision to them, such as chimera rats, which have no proper pictures. But regardless, all of them are the abominable creations and nightmare stuffs of Clan Moulder, and all of which are perfect fodder for the imaginative model maker or modder that you are. Where did we find this information? It's always something that's fun to think about. For such an important place, and Clan Moulder is one of the greatest Skaven holds, and the Skaven are one of the most interesting and seminal armies in the Warhammer world, there was very little information about the Hell Pit. Really, all of the information today came out of White Dwarf 310, which was from November 2005, which reasonably many of my listeners today may not have even been cognizant for. So that was a little bit surprising. Hopefully Games Workshop will put out a little bit more, since the Hell Pit may be a very important part geographically in the old world, in Warhammer the Old World, and we could definitely see that a bit more. As a point of reference, actually, the Siege of the Hell Pit and the Scourging of the Hell Pit was a big event in the Great Invasion of Chaos, even though the Hell Pit was theoretically at least on the side of Chaos during the Great Invasion. Asvar Kull's armies actually took a pretty big and expensive detour to try and wipe the Hell Pit off the map in the same way that they did the Norse dwarf holds, invading it all the way and getting down through the first 3 levels of the Hell Pit before being destroyed themselves. Hopefully we'll get some even more details about that, get some great campaigns out of it. It'll be a wonderful time for, it'll be a great modeling opportunity for that, I think. There were mentions, of course, of the Hell Pit in both the 6th and 7th edition Skaven books, but nothing really of note that compared to the wonderful 4-page spread we got in that White Dwarf. And of course, there was also a little bit of information in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, but again, nothing really that held a candle to the White Dwarf article. If you have any greater information, or if you know something I don't, please put it in the comments below and get some discussion going. There was some interest around this. As I said, this was a subscriber request, and I'm sure they'd be interested to hear some things that I forgot. As always, thank you so much for liking and subscribing and viewing this video and sharing it with your friends. I'd love to get this channel off the ground, and we did hit more than 1,000 viewers last month, and real excited over this last month, and I'm real excited to see that it's getting a little bit of traction, and I hope to keep it going. You all have a great day, and I look forward to putting on another one this week on a different subject. Thanks again. Bye now.